Hi everyone, welcome to Phantom Forge Minis. My name's Chris, and in this video I'm going to show you how I painted this 1000 point army of robot legions for Grimdark Future. So I'm just going to go through a few of the models here that we've got. I started off with a black prime, that's my robot lord, and then onto the heavy annihilator. We've got 5 robot warriors and 3 standard annihilators, and then one kind of War of the Worlds looking tripod walker. So to start off with, any of the models that have got cloth are going to get a zenithal highlight of Liquitex white ink. I'm just going to go slow with this, build up a couple of layers, just to kind of bring some volume to the cloth, just make it look a lot less flat really. You don't have to be too careful with this step, but any mistakes that you do make will show through the contrast paint in the next step. So next we're on to a contrast paint through the airbrush, Volupus Pink by Citadel, and I'm just going to thin this down kind of 50-50-ish with some contrast medium. This paint's quite opaque, and if you use neat then it'd kind of cover up the work that we'd already done on the cloth. So again, I'm just building this up in thin layers, and I thought to myself, this colour's a little bit desaturated. To boost the saturation, we're going to use some magenta ink from Liquitex. Now this stuff's pretty strong, you don't need much of it to get quite a lot of colour on the model. So I'm just kind of spraying from the top, where some of the previous underpainting that we'd done was still shining through. So while that's drying, we're going to base coat all the other models that don't have cloth with Vallejo Metal Colour Dark Aluminium. Now this stuff covers like an absolute beast. You can see how quick this is in real time. It's a really good metallic. So once I'd done that, I went on to brush on the metallic to the models with cloth, which are my warriors and my lord. Now this step was by far the longest in this paint scheme. So just while you watch me paint this metallic, I'm just going to waffle on a little bit about One Page Rules and why I like it. So if you don't know what it is already, One Page Rules is a company that's made kind of an easy access 40k. The rules are much more simplified. They fit on one page, both sides of a page, but it's still one page for the core rules, and the more advanced rules is a few more pages, but it's nothing like we've got in 10th edition. Now I like this because I literally cannot keep up with what's going on with Games Workshop. There's that many changes, there's kind of endless army balances. It's really difficult. It almost feels like another full-time job trying to keep up with what's current and what's relevant. Whereas with this, it's a little bit more basic. It's less competitive, and I found it much easier to get started with. I've got 2 kids. One of them's coming to the age now where he's always wanting to paint daddy's robots, and these are really cheap to print, pennies per model. So once you've got the files, you can just print infinite amounts, and I guess that's why I'm doing a bit of a speed paint on this really. Because the models don't cost that much money, I'm not really that bothered about what they look like. I mean, I am bothered, but I'm not going to take the kind of time and care that I would do on a 30-40 quid character from Games Workshop. I can print a whole army for that in resin, which is another reason why I like this rule set. I mean, you can use proxies in 40k, but it just doesn't feel right to me. So One Page Rules with a simpler rule set, it's going to be easier to teach my son, and he's just going to be able to pick the models that look cool and should be able to have some fun with that. So after the metallics are done, this is what they look like. I think they look pretty good so far. Just going to put a few more colours onto the model now. So we're going to start with Black Templar, and this is going to go over all of the guns and the pipes and the neck joint, the back of the head, just to kind of separate things a little bit from the body, because they do look a bit samey with all this metallic on. This just breaks it up a little bit. So I'm also putting this on the swords of the Annihilators. And I do a bit on the legs of the heavy Annihilator as well, just because he's a bit of a bigger model. While that's drying, we're going to put some colour on the base. I've gone for pale sand because we're going to do like a desert theme for this army. And this is quite watered down, but it's still got really good coverage. So nice and easy, base coat of pale sand over all the ground texture. Just a quick time check then. So we've done the metallics, we've done the cloth, and we've done all the base coats now that we need to do, and we're at about the 2-hour mark. Next we're on to the fun stuff, and we're going to use Agrax Earthshade, or Liquid Talent, some people like to call it, all over the model. This goes over everything and just kind of ties the model together. And for the base, I'm just using a watered down version, just mixing it with water. I tried putting it on neat, but it was a bit too strong. So now we're on to some OSL. Now this is a really basic version of OSL. It's how I would speed paint OSL really. So you're just going to get some Liquitex ink and build up some thin layers anywhere where you want some glow. So from like the centre of the gun where there might be a power cell, along the barrel, over the eyes, and over any of the kind of runes on the tripod walker. Next, just to reinforce that glow and make the centre of everything bright, we're going to go in with some Liquitex ink mixed with flow improver in all the recess parts where the glow will be at its brightest. Just a tip for Liquitex inks, if you're using them, make sure they're dry before you move on to the next step. I've used them before where I thought they were dry, and then I've put some contrast paint on the top, and then everything's kind of come off on my brush. So if you're in a cold environment, I'm painting in a garage, so I just keep a small heater to just kind of finish off that drying with the ink, and just make sure it's cured before you move on to the next step. So then we're going to go on to some dry brushing while that's drying. I'm just using some Vallejo Dark Aluminium, which was our base colour, mixed with a little bit of Vallejo Metal Colour Silver. And you only need a tiny little bit of this on the brush, and we're just going to dry brush some of the raised surfaces like the top of the heads, the shoulder pads, etc. and anywhere else we want to kind of bring out some more detail. So once I did that, I moved on to Athematic Blue contrast paint to give all the glowy parts that kind of blue hue. It's a really thin paint, so you can kind of slap it on and not worry too much about it. If you put a little bit too much on, you just go in with a damp brush and kind of mop it up a little bit. So I just paint this over all the white airbrushing that I'd previously done, and then just a little bit further onto some of the surrounding metal, over the eyes and over any of the runes. I was a little bit worried about how much I was putting on this tripod walker at first, but it turned out pretty well in the end. I'm just going back in now with some of that white ink and flow improver, just to get it into those runes, just to increase the intensity of the centre of that glow. So next step, we're just going to give the base a light dry brush of pale sand, our original basing colour. This just helps it look a little bit more dusty and desert-like. And then last step is to paint the base rim in Abaddon Black. I just added a cheeky few little extras here, some grass tufts for the base, just to give it that little bit extra realism. Just a time check there, so about 3.5 hours. It's pretty good. I'm happy with the paint job. I think it looks good enough for the tabletop. It is basic, but there's kind of 3 solid contrasting colours in there. And I think with that OSL, it just kind of gives it that little bit extra. So this is my first YouTube video. If you think I've done anything particularly well, let me know. If you think that there's areas I can improve on, give me that feedback as well. Pop it down in the comments or send me a message. I'm hoping to make this speed paint style video into a bit of a series and maybe do a small 1,000-point army for each of the factions for Grimdark Future. So if you're into that kind of thing, let me know which faction you want to see next. I'll do my best to come up with something for you. Cheers.